such success. We're so happy to once again have Dose of Donna Fisher here at Soccer Chat. Dose of Big D, whatever you refer to her as. Most of us call her Big D. But if you're professional, you refer to her as Donna. It's another episode of Dose of Donna. And Donna, some of the response that we got from the last episode, I shared a couple of text messages that I had received, and I know that you got some as well.
Yeah.
So how was the first episode for you, from your perspective? How was the first dose of Donna Fisher?
Yeah, I listened to it actually last week, and I loved it. I thought it was just scratching the surface, though, to be honest.
Yeah.
There's so much on this topic.
For you, is there? For me, it was trying to give you a more, not that speaking at convention isn't enjoyable for you, but almost a more relaxing atmosphere than convention. And so the hope was that you thought it was super easy to do.
Yeah. I mean, talking seems to be super easy to me.
And they could have picked two worse people to do this than you and I, who that's all we want to do is talk. But we got a lot of great feedback about the emotional intelligence when it comes to coaching. And I know there were a couple of things that you wanted to kind of add to that before we go into part two, which today is about the athletic side of emotional intelligence. So, just kind of a quick recap, or, maybe some of those extra things that you wanted to point out when it came to emotional intelligence for leadership and for coaching.
Yeah, so for maybe people that didn't get to listen to part one.
Which, if you haven't, go back and listen to it.
Yeah, true. But here's a Cliff Note recap. Emotional intelligence, we're talking about it. It's the ability, the skill of understanding and managing personal emotions, and then also recognizing and influencing others in managing their own. So it's broken down into four components of personal awareness, personal management, and then I say people or other awareness and other management. So kind of those four components. And really, I mean, we're talking about it in coaching because coaching is about people, right? It's about connection. So as leaders of our teams and coaches, we have to ask ourselves, how are we being, or who are we being in a moment, and how is that impacting not only our own path but those around us? Mm-hmm. And I mean, if you Google, I don't think I mentioned this this last time, but it's interesting. Daniel Goleman popularized the term, and but there's a former Google executive that actually created. This is why I'm trying to show you that this topic is everywhere in all industries. It's a hot topic. A former Google executive created an internal course actually for Google employees to develop their emotional intelligence skills. And now it's actually an external platform. And he also wrote a book that's called Search Inside Yourself. And here's a couple quotes that I think are significant for us in opening up again in part two. It says, emotional intelligence is essential to making leaders great. 80% of effective leadership qualities are made up from emotional intelligence. 80%. And then the single most significant factor that differentiates top-level leaders from bottom-level leaders is how they handle the interpersonal skill piece. Emotions are deeply human, and they surface, and they are involved in relationship. And as coaches, we have those coach-player relationships. And so this is all, I mean, it's all webbed together. You could call it all a big mess too. Yeah. But it's humanity. It's humanity.
What I think we may have hit it a little bit last week, but what would you say is one specific thing that we as coaches are missing when it comes to EI? And you had mentioned, and I've talked numerous times on Soccer Chat about the relationships.
Yeah.
Coaching is about relationships. Using your phrase, coaching is about people. And in that emotional intelligence, what is like one main takeaway that if a coach is needing a reason to go back and listen to part one, what's that main point of emphasis to why this should be something that's important to them?
I don't want the term emotional intelligence to be like so way up high as some theoretical piece, right? And so I think what I don't want to happen is coaches to immediately go to, when we say this phrase, to immediately go to, oh, well, we're talking about, the player that, is, frustrated on the field and is showing it, that emotional flair that you see, or it's the kid that's, crying in my office because of, XYZ happening, or playing time, or whatever. It's not only those moments. Emotions are thread into everything we do. It's micro moments. So it's the facial expression of a kid in the huddle when you're talking. That's an emotion. Is it confusion? Is it discomfort? Is it frustration? It's the deer in the headlights look of the kid sitting in your office when you're being honest with them. That's an emotion. There is an emotion there. There is a thought there. And so literally, I don't want the emotional intelligence phrase, word, term to narrow our thinking. I want it to explode our thinking and widen our view. That's what I hope coaches will see, is the wide view that this is everything.
Right. And we mentioned that we are going into this is part two of emotional intelligence, and now it's about the athletes.
Yeah.
And when athletes understand the importance of this, which is what we talked about last week with coaches, understand that importance of emotional intelligence and developing it. Now on the athletic side, for these athletes, young or old, I'm going to throw
Right.
us adult league people out there as well.
Right.
Why is emotional intelligence such an important thing for athletes?
It's ownership. It's the athlete, a person, right? An athlete being empowered to lead themselves well, and them being aware of what sends them into a tailspin, what makes them choke on the field, so to speak, what just derails them from having a great performance. And a lot of times that's thoughts and emotions. What derails a conversation with a friend, a family member, in real life situations? Emotions. So this is a life skill, and this is for their performance as an athlete.
With is it so much of a I'm going to try to get way too deep with this, and I don't have the degree or the pay
Oh,
grade
go
for
for it. Go for it. Go deep.
it. Is this we've talked in coaching circles a lot recently about the mental side of things,
Right.
and that self-confidence or lack of self-confidence or self-development and things along those lines. How much is it? How much do you have to have of that self-confidence to really get to the emotional intelligence as an athlete? Because I feel like,
Mm,
because so many kids
mm.
nowadays have self-confidence issues.
Yes.
Not unknown story, like something that I've dealt with my entire life and constantly
I
fighting with
think we
that.
all do. I think we all do.
Yeah. And so,
And it is, I'm telling you, Sean, it is the hot topic. I'm talking about
oh yeah,
self-confidence with athletes every week.
right. And so how much do they have to have that, or do they have to have a grasp on that before they can really develop this emotional intelligence?
I think it goes hand in hand. I think it's two moving parts in the same direction.
Hmm.
I wouldn't say you have to check the box fully on self-confidence before a person can dive into emotional intelligence.
Hmm.
I think it's a back and forth. It's simultaneous.
Yeah.
And remember, self-confidence is a skill. You can get better at it and practice it, just like emotional intelligence is a skill. When something is a skill, you can practice it and get better at it.
Yeah.
And I think the increase or the strengthening of one then helps the other.
For sure. Because I could see where they go hand in hand, but I could also see where, like, if you really lack in the self confidence side, that it might be hard to get that emotional intelligence. Because
But but if if an athlete begins to become more aware and discover more of the EI, become more aware of, okay, this is the emotion I'm having, this is how I want to choose to manage it. Wow. I mean, how brave is that? How deep is that? And the ownership there is leading themselves well. It's choosing
yeah,
the direction, right? Choosing the management, and that feeds into self-confidence,
that's sure.
right?
I'm just a broadcasting major.
Huh. Don't use
Psychology.
the word just.
So the psychology and things like that, like, it's stuff that I'm so intrigued by, but I also, like, will be the first person to be like, I'm not fully educated on stuff like that. And that's why, like, I really enjoy this, because I think there's a lot of coaches like me who, we understand, like, yeah, there's a mental side of things and things that are going on, but maybe we just don't understand it. And that's why we have to have our dose of Donna Fisher, because you put it in terms that we all can understand.
I
And think,
try. I try to put the cookies on the bottom shelf so everybody can reach.
oh, I
Reach them.
like that. So I'm gonna have to write that down. I like that.
Ah,
For athletes, we talked about their development of emotional intelligence. Do they really get it when it comes to emotional intelligence, and, like, what emotions of their performance in games can do to them?
no, they have no idea the impact that this has. I don't. I think there's so much more for them to understand. So this is how I open their eyes to the big picture, or a full picture of truly where emotions are, because I think they get stuck also in you know the anger, frustration, and it's just these snippets, one-time events, when really emotions and thoughts are driving everything. So I'll tell you, this is what I do in team meetings or with individual athletes. So let's say you're Sean. I'll put you on the hot seat.
Oh gosh.
You're my athlete right now. Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So Sean, give me just a general list, just brain dump of thoughts and feelings that you might have at a given moment about yourself, like in a game, in practice environment.
Am I am I following, like, our plan, or like the what was given to me by my coach.
Okay, correct. And so that's a thought. Would you say that that can stir up an emotion also?
Oh yeah, because if you feel like you're not doing it, you're going to get down on yourself.
And then would you say, is that going to impact your next actions or your behavior?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay, so another thought or feeling you might have.
Um, Man, like
I suck.
yeah. Um, I mean, could it be like a specific instance? Like if you did something that you normally do correct, like let's say simple as like I normally can beat people off the dribble going to the right, and
Yeah, what's wrong
I
with me?
can't. Yeah, and I'm not doing it.
What's wrong with me? Oh my gosh. So that's a thought that then could create what emotion?
Oh,
You're
upsetness.
scared,
Yeah,
you're reluctant, you're fearful, you're hesitant. And so would you agree that those thoughts and emotions could then impact your next actions, your next behaviors?
absolutely. Well, I guess taking a step further, what about? And you and I have kind of talked about this before. Almost like a fear of being successful. So, like, let's say that there's a team or a
Right?
player who, when they're getting that success, and all of a sudden, they start telling themselves like, "Well, it's too good to be true." And I feel like a lot of like I hear that
It's
a
like a
lot.
one-off.
Yeah,
It's a one-off, or oh gosh, if I'm successful, then I have to keep being successful.
right, right. And
And then there's pressure and
I feel like I'm
stress.
hearing that a lot more these days
True.
than I've heard before.
So we could run the gamut with, and let me tell you something. I mean, I really ask players to brain dump in the situation, because they could have well, and positive and negative, right? So you could have a positive thought. Man, I'm on fire right now in this game. What kind of emotion will that trigger?
True.
Excitement, blah blah blah, right? Then, okay, is that thought and emotion going to impact your next actions, your next behaviors? Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
then my next question, I go to this. So that's the first focus is on you as the player. Next is, okay, what are thoughts and feelings you have about blank? What are random thoughts and feelings you have about blank during a game or practice? So it's not about you, it's about blank, fill in the
Yeah.
blank.
Um,
Weather.
I say whether or thinking about being as a kid, like maybe homework, a test.
Homework. Oh my gosh, I have a huge test.
Right.
Is is that going to impact your next actions?
Oh, for sure.
Potentially, because you're not fully in the present moment. How about the referee? Oh, this referee is horrible. Is that's going to stir up an emotion? So those thoughts and feelings about the referee, are those going to impact a player's next actions, a player's behaviors? Yes or no?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. So I run the gamut, brain dump, get an athlete to try to tell me everything. Now, remember, we got to go, you got to go below the surface. So a coach can sort of give some suggestions. So if they haven't gone in a certain direction or a certain category, I will sort of open the door, crack the door so they push it
Mhm.
open, right? So it's your thoughts and feelings about your coach in that moment is going to impact. It's going to create a feeling, right? Feelings create thoughts create feelings.
Yeah.
Those are going to impact your behavior, your thoughts and feelings about your teammates, about a specific teammate, about the strategy that your team has for the game, your thoughts and feelings about the opponent. It's going to, so we have to give them, this is just uncovering, going beneath the surface. we have to give them the wide picture, the wide view, that thoughts and feelings are everywhere. They're happening in microseconds. The game happens in seconds. What goes on in between your ears, right, and in your heart, and it's microseconds. And it's either helping us or hurting us. And so this is why it's vital for an athlete to be aware, self-awareness, and then management.
How much of that, because what you just said a while ago about that reaction to the coaches and how, that can, thinking of what the coach is going to say or what the coach does say affects your next action. It made me think of, actually, on the way this morning, I was listening to a podcast with Andre Dawkins,
Okay.
who played just a little bit in the NBA, but more known for playing in college at Duke, and he had Shane Battier on with him. And Shane Battier they were basically talking about how Coach Mike Krzyzewski has this perception of just being very intense.
Yep.
But how what a lot of people don't realize is that when they're in down situations in practice or in games, how his calmness sets the tone for every player's next play. And
100%.
they had mentioned, Shane had just mentioned that, in 2001 when he played, there were two games specifically that stuck out to him where they were down big time in the second half. And, on the court, they're sitting there as players talking to each other saying, we're not going to get back, like, let's just do whatever. We're not going to get back in this, just try to score whenever we can. He's like, a timeout got called. And, he's like, I really noticed this in the last NCAA tournament where, a mistake happened, coach calls a timeout, and they're just laying into the player. What are you doing? Whatever. He's like, but I can remember, being down 10 against Maryland, thinking we have no chance of coming back to this. And we come to our timeout. He's like, and I'm expecting, Coach K to just get into us and lay into us and to try to motivate us to come back. He goes and, we just all sit down, and he just is kind of cool and collected. Just goes, don't worry, guys, we're still going to win this. Let's just do what we got to do. And he was like, in the moment that the entire five who was on the court recognized the calmness,
yes,
that they went, end up turning around and winning the game. And they put like a highlight clip of it on Andre Dawkins' Twitter. So if anybody follows him, it's at Dre Dawkins 20.
Okay.
And it's just so cool because Shane talks about how that calmness in those tough situations determined what the players are going to do.
That's emotional intelligence right there.
Wow. And they didn't even say EI, and that was what it was all about.
Well, yeah, I mean, it is. It's a coach being aware of, because he may have been feeling something else different inside of him, but being aware of that and managing to the degree of what do my players need to see. I always say to my coaches, your players are going to mirror you. So what you need from your players in a certain moment is what you need to be.
And I think that's exactly what Shane said. I believe he did say something about, like, as a player, you mimic what your coach does. And if your coach is fiery because you made a mistake, you're going to be fiery and probably make another mistake.
So then this trickles down into the players and the team. So if I'm a team captain, if I'm a leader, and we just get scored on, what am I going to say when I bring the huddle in? What message is it if I don't bring the team in to talk to them? What is my demeanor moving forward? What emotion am I showing? Do we need to calm down? Do we need a little spark of emotion? And so it's literally navigating our humanity, Sean, is what it is.
And because obviously basketball is a lot different than soccer, where in basketball you start making mistakes in a row, you can call a timeout, get everybody together,
Correct,
and work on it. As compared to soccer, like we don't get that opportunity until halftime. Unless like during the game there's a stoppage and a kid can come over and chat with you. So for soccer coaches specifically, how can we keep that when we don't really have like a stoppage where we can get everybody together and mimic that emotion for the players.
Well, they see it in the run of play. Oh, don't get me wrong. That yeah, they you do the same things. It's just during the run of play because they can see you out of the corner of their eye. If not, they're looking over on a dead ball or something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They're hearing you. I would hope they're hearing you.
Well, that's a fact. They are hearing you.
And if they're blocking you out, well, then you probably need to find a park bench and do a little self-reflection about that too.
Right.
That's a whole nother topic. So I think you I mean it's basketball, soccer, whatever sport, it's the people business.
Right.
I'll keep going back to. And so no, we don't have timeouts, but it's the same concepts. It's just during the run of play.
Well, what's the danger of a kid reading possibly the wrong emotion? So we were talking about like all the different things that can go into your head.
Yes.
So I'm just thinking, for example, I'm gonna call Nick out since he tweeted this yesterday and I loved it.
Okay.
But so he posted a video of his team scoring over the weekend, and he talked about he needed to work on his celebrations for goals because he's like, all these coaches have been posting their celebrations with their team and whatnot, and like his team scored, and his first thing was he went and started talking to another player about changing their press.
Yeah.
And so to me, now I'm thinking of the athlete here. So if you're that athlete that you score a goal and you're celebrating with your team and you're thinking that you can turn over and see your the sideline going crazy, and your coach is talking to someone else with their back turned to you, or if maybe the coaching staff is talking together and everybody's celebrating, how can that affect? Not saying that everybody has to celebrate goals, which to me it's like celebrate every goal you get,
Right.
but like how can even that little thing change that emotion for a player in a game,
I think
or
I
how they
think
may read it? I guess.
well, I think it can, but again, that's why we're working on this constantly with our athletes so that they have the tools to realize things and not attach meaning or run a false narrative.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're meaning making machines. Humans are meaning making machines. We want everything to mean something. So if I'm an athlete and I look over and the coaches are talking to another player and I attach a meaning to that, well, that means they're not happy with me. Those are reasons why we work through this emotional intelligence, the awareness and the management of thoughts and feelings with an athlete, so that in that moment they don't run a false narrative and snowball into something else. As a coach, that is going to happen sometimes. You're down to the wire and right, we tie it up and something happens and we've already thought ahead and we need to get information to another athlete, get them in the game. And so we're immediately doing the operational logistics piece. And I think we need to then remember in the back of our head, hey, I do need to show emotion. I do need to celebrate with this player. And I think you can do that just simply by, okay, you get the information to that player, she checks in, you turn back to the field, you get the player's attention, of course, not in the run of play. Maybe they haven't kicked off yet. And you literally you yell their name, get their attention, and thumbs up, hands clapping, fists in the air, whatever it is. And so you make that small connection. It can happen a little bit later. That's fine. But we have to be thinking about that.
Yeah.
What does my player need? What does my player need right now? And hopefully we've coached them up with their emotions to not run the false narrative.
So obviously, like last show, we talked about coaches, and we've done a little bit on this one, but more so on the athletes. And you do a lot of work with coaches, with your group and whatnot, but also you working with players. When
Yes.
you meet with an athlete specifically about this,
Yeah.
let us be a fly on the wall.
Okay.
That meeting when you're meeting with an athlete, and I'm going to be the athlete for you again, and I walk in, Big D. I just the the moment I make a mistake, I have this problem where I have to turn over and look at my coach, and if I can just tell from their face they're not happy with me. And when I notice that, then I'm starting to worry about, are my teammates not happy with me? Because
Right.
now I feel like I'm walking on eggshells. We're a fly on the wall right now. How does that meeting go?
Well, that's a typical meeting. That and it goes several different directions, but the entry point where you said, when I make a mistake, then fill in the blank. A lot of times it's the athlete being super frustrated, playing it safe, not taking risks anymore. Or, like you said, Sean, they look over at the coach and wondering what the coach is thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I do is I ask a lot of questions. Again, we have to remember to not should on athletes, where you shouldn't feel that way or you shouldn't think that way, blah blah blah. I So don't try to fix them right away in the moment. Part of coaching is empowering the athlete to take ownership of their game and their life. And most of the time they say they have a mental block, or they don't even realize how integrated all of this is, mind, emotion. So anyways, so ask questions. If if they come in and they don't even know what's wrong with them, you got to dig in there and not just tell them what you see. It's, well, what's going well, what's not going well,
Mm-hmm.
right? um what's making you hesitate, what is holding you back, right? Things like that. With your scenario here, you look over at your coach and maybe body language is bad, they're frustrated with you. I would say to you, well, could that be true? Yes, it could be true. Are it was it a huge mistake? Is that true? Yes,
Yeah.
potentially. Okay, so athlete Sean, what are the worst case scenario consequences that could happen?
Get taken out of a game,
You,
get
yep, you,
benched, not play the next game. Maybe the
not,
coach is harder on you in training
yep, you
because
could
you're
get
not
yelled at.
understanding. Yeah.
You get yelled at. Okay, fair enough. Is I mean, you're still alive, you're still breathing, you're still playing soccer, you're still on the team,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so, I mean, I kind of say that in a joking way, but just to kind of get the athlete to kind of take a breath, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, the other direction I'll go is, in the moment, ask them, what are other possibilities? You are assuming that the coach's body language, demeanor, or even maybe something they said is their emotion in the message is about you. What are other possibilities? Well, I mean, it could be tie score and we've got 2 minutes left. So The emotion could be about the situation. If the coach yells at you, let's say, the emotion is about the situation, not necessarily all about you. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Yeah. It could. What if, let's say, our star, our star top scorer, scores all our goals, just came off the field with a potential ankle injury. We're playing a man down. You make a mistake, lose the ball. Well, is that emotion all about you?
You
No.
probably would put it on yourself, but there's so many other events that led to that.
We take it all on ourselves as athletes, but really, it could be about the situation. Right, wrong, or different for a coach to show that's not the topic. But so what I say to an athlete then is, and I'll never forget, I had a player years and years ago at UCF that this changed everything for her. And I call it slice it, to where, right, because we're intense. We get on our athletes. And so when a message would come at her, I call it throwing the brick too. You throw a brick at somebody, or figuratively speaking, or use the velvet glove. So a brick's being thrown at her, the message, and I say you've got to slice it to where it's literally like taking a knife and just slicing through, and the content moves to one side and the emotion goes to the other side. And focus on the content. Just let the emotion, just don't get entangled. That's what happens, is the athlete gets entangled in the emotion and then attaches meaning to that, runs the false narrative. When what is the content of the message? We can't lose the ball there. Is that true? Yes. Fair enough. Get on with it. What's next? Move on. Keep playing. So slicing it is a tool I like to give athletes, in those moments. In these meetings too, Sean, just let me say this. I want them to know that thoughts and feelings are normal. It's not that we want our athletes to stop feeling, because emotions are giving you information about what's going on inside of you. It's just, we have to manage those. Is it helping us again, or is it hurting us? And so telling them that a feeling is normal is good. So take, for instance, I had an athlete recently who really just was afraid to make mistakes, like super afraid. And so we went through the consequences again. But then I said this, and fear, being scared is it's a hot topic. So every coach out there needs to listen to this. There's so many of us coaches tell players, you don't have to be afraid. No fear, fearless. Well, okay. I can get on board with that and sell that, talk on a soapbox. But I affirm the fear that somebody has, and I'll say to the athlete, what is the definition of courage? Well, I'll ask them, what is definition of courage? Courage, Cliff Note definition, is doing it afraid. In spite of the fact that I am afraid, I am doing it still. That is courage. So the very fact, Sean, when I talk to an athlete, I tell them up front, look, this is going to feel like I'm coming into your room and flipping furniture over. Like, I want to reframe things for people.
Yeah.
And so, okay, you're afraid. The very fact that fear exists allows you now to be courageous. If the fear wasn't there, you would not have the opportunity to be courageous. And you just see an athlete's eyes just light up like, oh, yeah. And they're ready to get out there and attack their fear and do it anyway and be courageous. And so reframing things, affirming their emotions and reframing things, I think is huge.
This is such a topic where I know, like, we try to do like the show in 45 minutes. I feel like this, like, we could do like part 3 and continue going on with this because there's still so many more questions that we, because now we're digging into the athletic side of things. And I think, to me, kind of I think a cool thing to do is do like a, 3-parter, and then take what we've gotten from the coaches and from the athletic side, and we have people submit in questions for that 4th episode. So part 4 would be
Sure.
the specific questions, because, like I said, I've still got so many more questions, and we just got a little bit of time left. What are, as we kind of wrap up here, just some like key behaviors or things that a coach like myself or like Nick or coaches who are listening, when you're recruiting or you're looking at a player coming in, what are some signs that we can look for somebody who has a high EI?
Yeah, signs that somebody has a high emotional intelligence are authenticity, that they can be transparent, they can be real, they can be genuine, authentic about what they're thinking, what they're feeling, and we can help athletes or provide for them a safe environment to be authentic. But that's key, a key behavior. I would say the combination of resiliency and flexibility. So a resilient athlete, yet at the same time being able to pivot, being able to adapt. So that means that they're, to some degree, managing their emotions already if they're able to pivot and be flexible in situations. Another,
go ahead.
well, lastly, I would say just the self-regulation. You can see that, when you're out recruiting, you can see if if a player is just, getting hit by the waves of emotion and just unraveling before your eyes. So if you see the opposite and you see a player being able to self-regulate, self-manage, I'd put a little note down about that. And lastly, a behavior that we all need to get better at is empathy. Can we empathize with colleagues, empathize with players, empathize with teammates? That is leaning into feeling what another person is feeling, understanding that, and if they give you permission, helping them manage that.
So, like, we've done 2 episodes of this now. I feel myself getting smarter.
Smarter.
And
Nice.
My wife will tell you that that's really hard for me.
Oh.
But I almost view this as, like, we see all the time now online, is like these master classes. And the thing is, like, I know what I'm getting out of this, and I'm sure that those who are listening are getting the same thing. And it's just, we just almost just barely scratched the surface. Like, yes, we're talking about emotional intelligence, but there's still so many other things out there that, as coaches and players, that we kind of need to work on and think about. And that's the cool thing about doing this show and getting our recommended dose of Donna Fisher, that you are helping the masses more than just once a year. I had somebody reach out, was like,
Yeah.
Donna's like my favorite presenter at convention. I'm like, well, now you can get her more than just once a year.
Oh, really? That's so sweet.
So like, I enjoy it, and I feel lucky enough that I get to sit here and get this discussion with you, because like I said, like I do feel like I'm getting, every time that you are mentioning scenarios, I'm visualizing scenarios that I've been in as a coach or as I've been in as a player.
Yeah,
oh, hey, next time I'm in this situation, let's try this.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
I thought I was reacting the right way. Maybe I didn't. Here's another thing to think about. And so it's all so cool, and I'm so glad that we're doing this. And like I said, this emotional intelligence, especially now as an athlete, I still have so many more questions that we'll get to on part 3. So, obviously, DonnaFisher.com is the website.
Yes.
You're everywhere on social media at Donna Fisher, but respectively known as Big D all around the soccer world. Donna, episode 2. Do you feel like you're almost a vet now, a veteran of the podcast game?
A veteran, sure.
Yes, we love the confidence. See, I'm trying to portray this emotion to you so that way you get the emotional intelligence and react and go, oh yeah, like we're doing a really good job. But
I was, when people say, "Are you ready?" My go-to answer is always, I was born ready. No, my answer is I was born ready.
Born ready, like Eddie Freddy.
Always.
Man, love it. Donna, let's do this again.
All right.
Like we said, we'll do, we did part 1 through the coaching side. Part 2 here, we kind of talked about the athletic side, or the athlete side. Part 3, we'll do athletes, finishing up on that, and kind of a review of coaches and players. And then episode 4, part 4 of emotional intelligence, I think we should do just a question and answer session. And maybe we do that for all of our topics. We'll do kind of like a 4-part series, and that 4th part is answering the questions about that. And if you have any questions that you want heard here on the Dose of Donna Fisher, on Wednesday nights we have Soccer Chat. It's on Twitter. Just follow the hashtag Soccer Chat. Big D's been on there the last couple weeks. I've been so blessed that she's been a part of it.
Got it on my calendar now.
Oh, we've made it to the calendar, ladies and gentlemen. But hop on there. We're always asking for questions for Soccer Chat, but also now we're starting to do it for Dose of D. And you can send those questions directly to Donna if you want on Twitter. You can. She also has a very public email on her website, DonnaFisher.com, or you can send them to us over at Soccer Chat. And so we'll always do part 4s will be questions about the series. Here we are getting super technological.
Yeah, and you're challenging me. Now I'm thinking, oh man, every topic I gotta have 4-part series on it. I love it.
The good thing is that
you're making me dig deeper.
The best thing is that we established at the very beginning, people have to talk on podcasts, and you and we can definitely pull that off. So Donna, thank you for another Dose of Donna Fisher. And I'm super excited about part 3 because I think that we just barely scratched the surface.
Yep, I'm ready to go.